Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're taking a look at some terrific battles from the Stockholm Regional Championships, where of all things, a Shadow MAGNEZONE just won the entire tournament. These tournaments are typically dominated by meta Pokemon as they're the most effective strategies, but today, a Shadow MAGNEZONE reigned supreme. The trainer who used it, her in-game name is Polasha, and she placed 4th at the European International Championships with MAGNEZONE, and now gets to take the crown as champion in Stockholm. The first matchup we'll be taking a look at is Losers Finals versus Lurgan Rocket. Lurgan Rocket, a previous regional champion at Liverpool in 2022, going up against Polasha. Polasha's team, Future Sight Cresselia, the Shadow MAGNEZONE, Shadow Whiscash, Mantine, Altaria, and the Skeledirge. So with the Cresselia, the Mantine, and the Altaria, 3 extremely good checks to help protect the MAGNEZONE against fighters and against ground types like an opposing Whiscash. The leads are set for game number 1, Shadow Gligar for Lurgan Rocket into the Shadow MAGNEZONE for Polasha. Despite the type advantage for the Gligar, Shadow MAGNEZONE can do quite well in this matchup. Lurgan Rocket building up to the dig, baiting with the Aerial Ace and grabbing the shield from Polasha. Polasha looking to double up on Wild Charges. Wild Charge will not KO from this range, but it will put it into Mirror Shot range, so it does a massive amount of damage. The back-to-back Wild Charges are going to grab back-to-back shields from Lurgan, the switch out by Polasha, and now the Cresselia save switch will be answered with Lickitung. This is very okay if you're Polasha. You've saved the MAGNEZONE, even after debuffing with the Wild Charges, you took no charge attack, so the MAGNEZONE is almost full HP. And there's still a shield available for Polasha if she needs to protect the MAGNEZONE later in the match. And we do see the Skeledirge in the back, which also would not be a massive fan of energy from that Gligar. Cresselia going for Future Sight number 2. This will not be enough to KO, but it will get Lickitung deep into the red. Farming up, banking the Grass Knot, the aggressive switch into the MAGNEZONE to try and snipe with a Volt Switch. This Body Slam will connect. Lickitung survives on 1 HP. Back in comes that Gligar. Gligar going for the dig. The no shield, and down goes Shadow MAGNEZONE. You can potentially send in the Skeledirge here, because Skeledirge does have a shield to protect itself. Another bait and another shield. Lurgan Rocket, he's not going to make the dig, otherwise it would be charge attack priority and a Shadow Ball would knock out. So he's instead just going to settle for the Aerial Ace. The Aerial Ace will connect, and now an overfarm of 1 Incinerate by the Skeledirge. Skeledirge picks up the knockout with the Disarming Voice, and all that's left is the 1 HP Lickitung and the Cresselia in the back. And in comes the Cresselia. We see a switch into the Lickitung trying to go for the catch. The catch is unsuccessful, and Skeledirge will fire off the Shadow Ball. This will hit for massive damage. And now, Lurgan is able to get to the Grass Knot. Grass Knot will be enough to knock out, but the question will be, can he KO the Cresselia from Polasha? And it looks like the answer is no. The charge attack stored from earlier is going to be able to pick up the knockout, and that's a Game 1 win for Polasha. We get a brief moment to take a look at Lurgan's team before we hop into game number 2. He has Dugong, Shadow Gligar, Annihilate with Night Slash and Shadow Ball as the charge attacks, Lickitung, Cresselia, and Lantern. His team is so weak to that Shadow MAGNEZONE. He leads Annihilate, hoping for the MAGNEZONE, but all he sees is Skeledirge from Polasha. The MAGNEZONE, safely hidden in the back, goes for a Shadow Ball catch on a Lickitung. It's unsuccessful, and in comes Shadow MAGNEZONE. Shadow MAGNEZONE going to be resisting the charge attacks from the Lickitung, but Body Slam will still do quite a lot of damage. Overfarming and firing off the Wild Charge, this will not be enough to KO. But if we take a look here, Polasha was predicting the switch by Lurgan to bring the Annihilate. He didn't bring a game 1, but after MAGNEZONE was able to put in work in game 2, predicting that he would bring the Annihilate and running an Annihilate counter on the lead with the Skeledirge and 1 in the back with the Cresselia. And Lurgan just has nowhere to go in this game. He sends in the Dugong. Dugong getting absolutely smacked with charge attack after charge attack. This Shadow Ball does get no shielded. It KOs. In comes the Annihilate. Annihilate will be firing off the Night Slash. Night Slash shielded up by Polasha. Do we see the boost? We do see the boost. Lurgan Rocket getting the boost when he needs it the most. The no shield by Polasha. The question will be, can she Psycho Cut down? It looks like the answer is yes, as Lurgan, he sees it. He understands he may be boosted, but he's just running out of HP. The Night Slash, he cannot make another charge attack, and that's a game 2 win for Polasha. Tough lead for Lurgan in game number 3, Lickitung versus the Shadow MAGNEZONE. and this team is very soft to Shadow MAGNEZONE. Lurgan tries to go for the charge attack priority tie after the 5th Volt Switch, but she doesn't throw, and that gives an entire free Volt Switch to the MAGNEZONE. Wild Charge, no shielded by Lurgan. She safe switches into Cresselia. Lurgan does not send in the mirror, he sends in Gligar, and this is going to be extremely unfortunate in the endgame, as this means that her Skeledirge is going to be aligned onto his Cresselia once again. So that is very, very tough for Lurgan, as he needs 3 wins in a row to advance to the grand finals, and this game 3 is looking dire. The Grass Knot by the Cresselia will be shielded up. The Gligar looking to overfarm quite significantly, going for the dig on charge attack priority. The no shield by Palasha. Dig is going to be enough to knock out. Still does have the Skeledirge and the MAGNEZONE. In comes the MAGNEZONE. We're going to see the Aerial Ace fired off by Lurgan Rocket and the shield by Palasha. The MAGNEZONE running out of HP. MAGNEZONE going to be firing off this Mirror Shot. Mirror Shot barely does get the KO. And now, does he send in Cresselia here? He sends in Lickitung. She sends in the Skeledirge. He concedes the match. And we move to Winners Grand Finals. In Winners Grand Finals, we actually have the battle between 2 Pokemon Go Battle League Twitch streamers, Palasha versus Matt Beer. Matt Beer has a team featuring Cresselia, Skarmory, a cool pick in Shadow Sableye, Altaria, Lantern, and Vigoroth. The competitors get to exchange a fist bump before the battle starts. Always nice to see great sportsmanship. And Palasha, of course, with the Shadow MAGNEZONE team. And MAGNEZONE looks to be an absolute nightmare for Matt to deal with. Game 1, he leads Altaria, not into the MAGNEZONE, but into an Ice Beam Mantine. And this is an extremely tough start for Matt. Matt going to be hit with the Ice Beam, committing the shield, getting the shield call right, but even so, this is a very tough spot to be in, considering there's that Shadow MAGNEZONE lurking in the back, and Shadow MAGNEZONE's energy can hit this entire team for, at minimum, neutral damage. Another Ice Beam by the Mantine. Altaria going to let this through. Ice Beam picks up the KO. In comes Sableye. Sableye not going to get the farm down before the Aerial Ace is reached. And this is just looking incredibly tough in this game number 1. Sableye going to get the farm down. In comes the Shadow MAGNEZONE. MAGNEZONE committing the shield, as we do see Sableye go for the foul play. In comes Vigoroth, farming up to the Wild Charge, baiting with the Mirror Shot and getting the shield from Matt. That is an important bait, as now she's only going to be 2 Volt Switches away from a Wild Charge later in the game. Altaria going to be met with the Rock Slide, shields at the last second and gets the shield call right. Vigoroth able to make Rock Slide number 2 incredibly spammy. That counter plus Rock Slide combination so deadly when going up against flyers. Very nice counting by Palasha, going to fire off this Sky Attack just before the Vigoroth makes the Body Slam. In comes the Sableye. Sableye unable to make it to a move, and that's a Game 1 win for Palasha, who needs to win 2 best of 5s, the first to reset the bracket, and the second to become champion. Great lead from Matt Beer, leading the Vigoroth into the Shadow MAGNEZONE, but the Altaria safe switch does make things a bit complicated. Staying in with the Vigoroth, firing off the Rock Slide, grabbing a shield, sending in the Cresselia. This Cresselia is on Moonblast, which means that it's very comfortably going to be able to 2-shot the Altaria. Switch clocks are misaligned, however, and we do see a Moonblast debuff onto that Cresselia. Oh no! I mean, realistically, it's not going to impact things a whole lot, just because you are still going to need 2 moves to KO regardless. But man, a little bit of unfortunate luck for Matt here. The Moonblast is going to be shielded. He's overfarming as much as possible and firing off the Moonblast. But Palasha now has a very nice opportunity to get farm on the MAGNEZONE. This Moonblast is debuffed and it's going to be resisted. So she's very fine taking this damage because she knows that she can Wild Charge the Vigoroth. Oh, she's baiting again. Matt, tough decision to make. He commits the shield on the Mirror Shot bait. In comes the Mantine. Mantine now going to be baited with the Body Slam, and she calls the bait instantly. Body Slam not going to do a whole lot of damage. In comes Shadow Sableye, but Shadow Sableye without shields should get knocked out by 2 Aerial Aces here. Aerial Ace number 1 is going to connect. Looks like might need a couple more wing attacks, and then that second Aerial Ace will be enough to knock out. So we do see the shield by Palasha. Palasha over farming. This Aerial Ace will be enough to KO. Shadow Sableye so deadly, but without shields. The lack of bulk is evident. In comes the Vigoroth. She makes it to the Ice Beam, and despite a terrible lead, Vigoroth into the MAGNEZONE. She's going to be able to take the win. She goes into the MAGNEZONE to force the energy, and then Mantine can just farm down, and she's up 2-0 as she looks to reset the bracket. Game number 3, same leads as game 1. Vigoroth into the MAGNEZONE, the safe switch into Altaria, but this time Matt does not have the Cresselia to answer it. He's going to bait, and she does commit the shield, and now he's going to bring in his own Altaria. Very much behind on energy. She is not going to bait, going straight for the Moonblast. That's a big shield for Matt. Matt needed to get that correct. We see another Moonblast debuff. Oh my goodness, what are the odds? 2 Moonblast debuffs back-to-back games. In comes the MAGNEZONE, and MAGNEZONE's energy is so terrifying in this matchup. MAGNEZONE going to no-shield the Moonblast and just look to exit with so much energy to threaten the Vigoroth, leaving with the back-to-back wild charges. In comes the Vigoroth, and Vigoroth, this counter, even though the defense has been lowered by -2, will not KO, which means this wild charge gets to land. And look at this damage right here. Bang! The Vigoroth is gone, but in the back, she has Mantine, and it's met with Lantern. So Matt, despite the fact that that Shadow MAGNEZONE is omnipresent, is able to try and fight back in this series, and he's going to be able to take game 3 and force a game number 4, but that Shadow MAGNEZONE, oh my goodness. He was able to work his way around it this time, but what a terrifying Pokemon to go up against for his team. Battles are set. Game number 4. Just keep leading the MAGNEZONE. Eventually, the Vigoroth will not be there to greet it. Going up against the Spark Lantern, which is a tough spot to be as the Lantern user. Here's the thing. Surf will do a lot of damage, but the MAGNEZONE more than happy to shield and build up to the back-to-back wild charges. Matt is going to no shield. Can his Lantern hang on? His Lantern cannot. It gets KO'd. In comes the Vigoroth. Vigoroth committing the shield. That counter that went through will be onto a -4 defense MAGNEZONE, so that counter does way more damage than it typically would. In comes Altaria. Altaria versus Vigoroth, a matchup we're seeing again and again in this matchup. The Rock Slide will connect. He now switches into his own Altaria, going to be met with the Moonblast. He is going to commit the shield here. He wants to preserve his Altaria. We see another Moonblast debuff. Oh my goodness. And in the back is Mantine. A third Moonblast debuff. What are the odds? Someone asked to do the math for me in the comment section. That is absolutely insanity. Oh my goodness. I mean, at this point, yeah, it's just so hard to get rid of this Mantine since the Mantine has a shield. Mantine going to be able to shield up the Body Slam, fire off the Ice Beam. This will not KO, but it will get the Vigoroth deep into the red. Ice Beam will connect, farming up the switch into the MAGNEZONE and the catch. Matt has to go for an undercharge, but even an undercharge will not be enough. MAGNEZONE Volt switches down. She still has the Mantine in the back, and she takes the series 3-1. The bracket has been reset, so now it's a final best of 5 to determine the regional champion of Stockholm. Vigoroth on the lead, but now it sees a Pokemon that it didn't see in that first series. Vigoroth versus the Shadow Whiscash. Shadow Whiscash, honestly not bad to see it here, because the Shadow Whiscash would do very well into the backline. Vigoroth does not get debuffed, so a bit of good luck goes Matt's way. The Body Slam will connect, looking to overfarm, tries for a Scald catch onto Lantern, an incredibly risky maneuver, and unfortunately it does not pay off, as now the Lantern will be met with double Mud Bombs here, and this Mud Bomb will be enough to KO. That's very unfortunate for Matt. He does have energy on the Vigoroth, but now we see a switch into Altaria, and Altaria up 2 shields is going to be able to tank this move, farm down, and Altaria is very deadly when shields are down. He realizes he's not going to make it to the Thunderbolt, so he is just going to settle for the Surf, and the Surf does absolutely nothing to Altaria. In comes Skarmory. Skarmory going to be hit with the Moonblast. Moonblast is going to be hitting for some slight resisted damage onto the Skarmory there. Skarmory going to get a massive farm down, but in the back, it's the Shadow MAGNEZONE with 2 shields. And there's just no way to beat it. In comes the Vigoroth. Vigoroth firing off energy, but MAGNEZONE can commit the shield, click Wild Charge, and that Vigoroth will disappear. Vigoroth, get him out of here. Oh my goodness. In comes the Skarmory. Skarmory getting farmed down as well. And we now move to game number 2. Altaria on the lead into Mantine. We see a repeat of the leads from game 1 of the first best of 5. And the MAGNEZONE in the back again for Palasha. And we see the Skarmory in the back for Matt Beer. So switch advantage matters quite a bit. But if he has to go down shields to win switch, then MAGNEZONE can beat the Vigoroth. This is such an incredibly tough matchup because of how weak this team comp is to MAGNEZONE. We're going to see the double shield from Matt Beer. We're going to see an aggressive switch into the MAGNEZONE. MAGNEZONE going to try for the wild charge, but not before the body slam is reached by the Vigoroth. Vigoroth able to grab a shield. She's going for the wild charge. Wild charge. There's no shields left to protect the Vigoroth. Vigoroth, the one counter user on the team, keeps getting knocked out by wild charges. MAGNEZONE on a rampage. In comes Altaria, and it does not get the farm down. The wild charge is reached. Shadow MAGNEZONE knocking out Pokemon left and right. In comes the Skarmory. Skarmory to be met with the Altaria. This is a good matchup for Skarmory, but down a shield, this is losable. We see an immediate no shield by Palasha, calling the Sky Attack, and it is going to be the Sky Attack. It's too risky for Matt to go for a Brave Bird and lower his defense there. She will fire off the Moonblast. A Moonblast plus Sky Attack combination should be able to win it for her, as he's just not going to be able to get to 2 charge attacks. He is going to fire off his energy just to try and potentially force her into making a mistake, maybe no shielding, but she is going to commit the shield, fire off the Sky Attack. Palasha now up 2-0, 1 win away from winning the entire tournament. Matt had a rough first series. Now he's down 0-2. This MAGNEZONE, he doesn't have any answers for it. We see a repeat of the leads from game 1 of this set. Vigoroth versus the Shadow Sableye. This time, he is going to fire off his body slam on charge attack priority to the Scald, forcing an early shield from Palasha. As always, we see that MAGNEZONE lurking in the back. So scary with an energy advantage or a shield advantage. The Scald 50-50 does work in Palasha's favor. We see the save switch into Altaria, and that's going to be met with MAGNEZONE, which is pretty okay if you're the Altaria. A Wild Charge doesn't KO at this range. We will see a shield just in case the Wild Charge is thrown. Able to grab the shield, but now this Moonblast will be lethal. She has to shield this, or she does get knocked out. So the Altaria, as we see an attack debuff from Moonblast from Matt. So we saw a lot of Moonblast debuffs in that first series, and now Matt gets one of his own. This is like a 10% debuff chance move, and it keeps debuffing. Oh my goodness. In comes the Altaria. He's going to be able to fire off the Moonblast. This will hit for massive damage into the Altaria, and the Altaria, we see the combo play with the Vigoroth as well, removing basically any functional HP. In comes the Whiscash. Whiscash going to be able to pick up a KO with the Mud Bomb, but Whiscash, its worst nightmare is the Altaria, and the Altaria is still available, sending in the Altaria just to force the Whiscash to throw energy. Whiscash has to rely on a Scald to knock out. It is going to be resisted. Scald knocks Altaria from the sky. In comes Shadow Sableye, but Shadow on Shadow, a Scald will not be enough to KO here. We see the sigh of relief from Matt. He figured out the answer. MAGNEZONE gets defeated, and he forces game number 4. The leads are set. Altaria again going up against the Shadow MAGNEZONE. And despite the fact that this is one of the matchups where Shadow MAGNEZONE should typically do quite well, it seems like Matt is very okay with this alignment. Matt saying, you know what, at the very least, Dragon Breath does monster damage in this matchup. He shields once, he's shielding twice, he just wants the MAGNEZONE gone. MAGNEZONE just gonna stay in and let itself get farmed all the way down. In comes Mantine. He has the Lantern in the back. If he's able to grab a shield from this Mantine, things are looking incredibly good. He's going for the Moonblast. Palasha shields. And now she's protecting a Pokemon that she doesn't know yet is completely useless in the endgame. So she's going to massively overfarm, exit with energy, but the energy does nothing to the Lantern. Aerial Ace does not KO. She snipes with her own Altaria, and he's just going to send in Vigoroth. And this is actually going to be going down to a decisive game number 5. She does get the shield call right on the rock slide, but at this point, she just doesn't have a win con in this game, as unfortunately, a Moonblast can't KO from there. So she is just going to be hit with the Rock Slide. Rock Slide is going to do so much damage. She's going to overfarm quite a lot, hoping against hope that it's something that can be smacked with Altaria energy, but it's not. It's the Lantern. Lantern met with the Moonblast. Matt Beard nodding his head. He was able to get the right call. In comes the Mantine going for the Aerial Ace, but Mantine is just food for Spark Lantern. These sparks shredding through the Mantine. Mantine getting farmed all the way down. In comes the Altaria, and the adjustment to put Altaria on that Shadow MAGNEZONE proves to be a good one, as he's won back-to-back games. And now it all comes down to this. They've played 9 games so far. The 10th is for the championship. The leads are set for game number 5, Altaria versus Cresselia, and this Cresselia is running Future Sight. These tournaments do use an open team sheet format, so the movesets are known to the competitors. Future Sight will be shielded, Matt massively overfarming, going for the Sky Attack before Future Sight number 2 will be reached. Sky Attack no shielded by the Cresselia, as Palasha, I imagine, is very happy to lose lead and just farm down with the Shadow MAGNEZONE, which has unquestionably been the star of the show for her team. Matt, the perfect overfarm. The Sky Attack is going to be able to pick up the knockout, but now it's time for the Magnet. In comes Shadow MAGNEZONE. Shadow MAGNEZONE met with the Moonblast. It's resisted, but she wants to preserve HP, so she will commit the shield, get a farm down. He can send in Vigoroth. She's going to be able to make it to back-to-back wild charges. The counter will register after the defense drop, so that counter is going to do more damage than usual, but not enough to KO. This wild charge, if it doesn't KO, the counter will. It does get the KO. In comes Altaria, but he makes the rock slide with a fraction of HP, forcing the shield. And this tournament comes down to the 0 shield. Altaria versus Lantern. Lantern always needs 2 Thunderbolts in this matchup. Altaria needs to land a Moonblast and hope to try and farm down. Altaria going for the Moonblast. This will hit for some significant damage. Moonblast lands onto the Lantern. No debuff. It's going to be a race. Dragon Breath adding up. He cannot get to the Thunderbolt right as he gets there. The Dragon Breath from Altaria gets the KO, and Palasha is the Stockholm Regional Champion, running a very spicy anti-meta Pokemon like Shadow MAGNEZONE, bringing it nearly every game and piloting it to perfection. So big congratulations to Palasha, and honestly, a pretty big congratulations to Matt Beer as well, taking that series to a Game 5, despite how horrible his team was into Shadow MAGNEZONE. Shadow MAGNEZONE was incredibly strong into his team, and it just shows the talent of the trainers in these finals. One, piloting an anti-meta Pokemon that ended up core-breaking meta teams to shreds, and the other, still being able to fight to the last singular HP, but it's Shadow MAGNEZONE that reigns supreme here in Stockholm. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.